Today I'm going to be talking about manipulation tactics and deceit that is used by men to gain access into a woman's opening, to gain access into the creative life force that moves through the feminine. Now, this is especially going to apply to women who hold divine level womb architecture. These would be powerful women where the current of the goddess moves through her differently than it would a suppressed, repressed, wounded feminine body. So this is especially going to apply to women who are oracles, priestess, whose radiance is undeniable. Now, this is still going to apply to any woman with a womb, period. The reason why I say especially apply to a priestess and an oracle and these types of women is because it is a greater infraction for a man to intentionally use manipulation and deceit to gain access into your divine level architecture. I walk women through processes of womb healing. And when I do that, we're also bringing forward architecture that is the truth of the true womb. Because her womb genuinely is a temple, genuinely. The reason why women have lost this connection to this understanding is because there was intentional infiltration by way of a patriarchal matrix that took down, destroyed temples, that removed priestesses, especially high priestess, from being the center point of creation, which the feminine essence is and always will be. We can only make it be perceived to be differently by placing, for example, this is how the patriarchal matrix works, placing the wounded masculine as the epicenter of attention. Because if we have our attention on the wounded masculine, what is created is the distortion, the conditioning, and the dysfunction. It's the old paradigm. If we have a woman who is the true representation of the divine feminine, which I am, and we place her in her rightful placement, which is the epicenter of creation, because all of creation comes from her. Now we begin to restore the planet. It actually brings in the original frequencies of the original mother, of the original womb. And those frequencies hum out of her. It's like a tuning fork for creation, and it collapses the distortion, and it brings in truth and true love frequencies and the true original coding and templating all into the focal point of attention, which again restores this entire planet. So if a man uses intentional deception and manipulation tactics to gain access to the temple, to the body, to the soul, to the multiple bodies, everybody, emotional, mental, physical, etheric, spiritual, etc., etc., etc. If he uses manipulation and deceit to access a woman of that level, of that kind of caliber, to open her, not to honor her, not to pour into her, but to extract, infiltrate, imprint trauma onto her, it is a greater infraction, and he will suffer the consequences. I have been in a deep healing process. I'm still in it right now. And it has to do with this very topic. When I was having my last conversation with this man that used this tactic, which we'll be getting into, I said to him, I'm not having this conversation with you for repair. I'm having this conversation with you to see. Because he had done something so extreme that he couldn't wiggle out of it. There's a layer to this that I'm going to be speaking about, which is also about purity, because purity is a big part of this. If we look at the architecture of a woman who is holding the true feminine, she's always going to also be holding purity, because purity and innocence is related to the divine child. And the divine mother and the divine child are intimately interconnected. There's also the Trinity, right? Because if you're going to be upholding the true feminine, there's going to be the integrative component of the masculine. The feminine is all of it, because from her arrived all of it. So this part, this layer of purity is really important to this conversation. And so many of you that follow me, like my client base, the people that are in my membership group, the people that work with me one-on-one, commonality is purity. They all have purity. And actually, it is because of their purity that they can see me. It is because of their purity that they are discerning. It is because of their purity that they have an integrative lens. Because purity can see through distortions. Now, this is very, very important for me to mention. No matter how far along you are, no matter how discerning you have become, you are not exempt from manipulation. I wish that I could tell you that that was different. I am very perceptive. I am very insightful. I am discerning. I can see from multiple angles. I've been through so many iterations of betrayal and manipulation and deceit. It is unbelievable. And when you get into these higher and higher and higher levels where you are upholding, beholding the sacred to levels that people don't even know exists. For example, I hold some of the highest temple architecture. I actually teach it. I only teach it in my membership group. I don't teach it in public that I know of. So there are people who also oftentimes have entity level attachments that will near me because they can see me. And they're not seeing me because of their purity. They're seeing me because it's like they're feasting for their famine, because they are motivated by destruction, because they see the value that is me, and they want to control and conquer me, just like is the history with priestess and temple in the feminine essence in general. So many men have distortions and conditioning within inside of them that seeks to control the feminine. This is why we see all this bullshit polarity teaching that tries to call itself higher consciousness, but it's actually patriarchy reversioned with different wording, but it's all the same thing. She needs to submit to him. Surrender and submission are very different. So there are many men that inside of them, if they have not done the work, they hold those imprints of control. And control is automatically related to manipulation and deceit. So when we get into these like higher and higher and higher kind of levels, in my experience, because it is my direct experience, you become introduced to various versions of the control and false power. I teach a lot about false power, especially in my membership group, and all of these kind of dynamics. And you can see it moving through different timelines and timeline collapses and timeline falls. I actually can see it all the way to an omniversal level. So then you might be going, well, Ashtyn, then how were you deceived by this man? Well, because he presented intentionally a different version, a partial version of himself, a forward-facing version of himself that I appreciated, that I valued, that brought me value. So this is even a part of like temple dynamics is if you meet a priestess, if you really value the feminine, you should be bringing her gifting because it's a part of your intentional arrival and showcasing of your honor and your reverence. So this man brought certain things forward that were like that. And he was very psychically inclined. And so he could pick up on what was a resident match for me in my temple, in my architecture, and also relative to my human. And he was intentionally studying me to deceive me. Now, purity comes from a very different place. And again, I'm speaking this because so many of you here likely uphold a level of purity that is rare in this world. For me, there's none of that. That does not exist inside of me. I'm allowed to say that because it's true. A lot of people will want to project their own imprinting onto you, especially when you're a pure form. That's what I call it in my own teachings, being. Because they're like, no, there's no way that doesn't exist inside of you. It exists inside of me. It exists inside of everyone. And it's like, actually, no, it doesn't live inside of me. There's nothing in me motivating me to manipulate other people for control, for a false sense of power, to create harm, even like where we could look at it from a wounded feminine lens of, like, let's say victimhood. It can kind of seem innocent. It's like, oh, well, she's manipulating to get her unmet needs met. I'm not saying none of that exists within inside of me. What I'm saying is that if it does exist within inside of me, I am so available and willing to see it immediately. But there's nothing in me that is seeking to manipulate or deceive. I just don't have that. I just don't have it. Not in the ways that I'm speaking about. And it's so little in comparison to my overall composition, it doesn't outweigh or overpower me. It doesn't actually get the say in the room when the wholeness of me operates differently than that. So again, oftentimes what will happen is what we'll do when a woman speaks her experience is we'll be like, oh, well, smarten up. Oh, well, why didn't you see that? We'll victim blame. We'll question the person that has had harm perpetuated onto them rather than paying attention and in that moment focusing on the destruction and the distortion and upholding that in its responsibility for the harm that it has created. So fucking backwards how we're operating. So the purity part is, of course, that when you don't have these things inside of you, it's going to be more difficult in a way to detect it because you don't have a point of reference. Unless you experience it externally, you're not going to have a point of reference. This is oftentimes why we see empaths with narcissists. One of the main lessons that I gained from my relationship with the narcissist, which was from age 17 to 27, but even before that, he was my first kiss in sixth grade, was wait a second, not everyone operates like I do. To me, if I say I love you, I want the very best for you, there's nothing in me that would be attempting to harm you. So I couldn't see the deception because there was nothing in me. I didn't have the reflection at that time. And so then it's like, oh, not everyone is like me. Not everyone has this pure core in the way that I do. And again, you can go through many iterations of deception, and in each one, there's also still a learning lesson. And there's layers, right? Like onion layers and depth and levels that we get into, and we can see more each and every time. So, a part of why I am brought to these insane experiences that are deeply hurtful is because I hold purity at very high concentrations, and my purity also has penetrative sight. Like I was saying to this man in this conversation, I'm not here for repair. I'm here to see. And I said to him, I am here to see because I am the thing that goes out into the world on behalf of the feminine essence to keep her safe and protected by illuminating your deception. And I could feel some of his energy trying to retract. And I said, I can feel you trying to hide from me, but you already showed me too much. You can't hide anymore. I am here to represent the true feminine, which I am, but I'm also here to advocate on her behalf by seeing high level deception in the seen and unseen. Not every woman is going to go through the same type of iterations, even when similar patterns are there. What I'm meaning by this is if, for example, you are not a woman that is intuitive or psychically inclined, you're not going to come into contact with levels of deception that include psychic capacity. That creates a even more masterful version of manipulation and deceit. Do you see what I'm saying? So we will not be victim blaming or questioning my level of sight or discernment in this conversation because that is not the direction we need to be going in. What we need to be doing is illuminating the deception to keep women safe. And I'm also here to keep high level women safe. So this is a part of the pattern we're going to drop in now. What these men do is they utilize depth and holding space, so creating safety, building trust, in order to gain access into her opening. In my own teachings in my language, I say it is his responsibility to honor her opening. There are a lot of men that what they will do is they will create these opportunities for connection in order to open a woman, and then they'll vacate. They won't hold the space for it. This is the thing. When a man arrives and he begins to create a container, a relational container for the experience of her softening and connection and intimacy and vulnerability and trust building that all lead into her opening, it is also his responsibility to continue to hold the container for her unfurl. Period. If you are not continuing to hold that container for the experience that you opened intentionally with inside of her, you are feasting off the feminine essence. And you need to deeply look at your own patterns and conditioning, because you are currently not a safe nor integrity man. Period. Awareness is step one, which is also a part of why I speak to patterns. And it does trigger a lot of people, because it's like, oh, fuck, that lives inside of me. And if you're not willing to look at it, you're going to try to project onto me. Not available for it. I'm not here to hold what is yours. I'm here to speak truth into the room. That's it. So there are men, especially when we start getting into more spiritual spaces, conscious communities, that create personas. And part of what they're doing, though I appreciate that we have more people speaking to and teaching true masculine and feminine dynamics and just relational dynamics, they are the foundations, but humanity is vastly unfounded. We're not in our bodies as a collective. And so, of course, our relational dynamics are not even elementary in the foundations. Connection and intimacy and trust and safety and integrity and transparency and authenticity and congruency. So I appreciate that there are people that are speaking to these kind of things, but here's also an issue with that. It's an unfortunate outcome when misused, right? Sacred knowledge, ancient wisdom, and just foundational great information can be misused by those who choose to misuse it. It doesn't mean that we don't teach it and we don't speak it, though, of course, I do have spaces where I will teach and speak certain things, in other spaces I won't, more publicly, to keep things that are sacred safe. When we have certain teachings online, there are men that are studying it. These men tend to be very heady. They're not connected to their emotional body. If they were connected to their emotional body, they would be more connected to the feminine essence, and they wouldn't feel like it's a feast for a famine. If he was more connected to his feeling and also his body, he would immediately feel the impact of his deception, of any kind of harm that he brought onto her. He would feel it in his body. This is also going to be another layer of this teaching transmission. Is the physical and the feeling and the body and why it matters and how to be with it after deep levels of betrayal and deception. So these men are heady. Certainly some of them are narcissistic. Narcissists are disconnected from their feeling body, but they can be highly intuitive, telepathic, but it's more through typically a mental body way of being. And they will study and study and study people and things like posted online to create a mirage, to create a kind of a mirrored image that he can use to hook high-level women, because higher and higher level women, greater access to the current of the goddess. If you have access to the current of the goddess, you can try to infiltrate and take it and then redirect it for a misdirection, for example, to serve your conditioning, because ultimately you are a slave to your conditioning. To re-imprint it into the collective, to hold it in place so that you can keep your false sense of safety and power. This is where I uphold women to the level of responsibility that they actually are meant to be upheld to. Because as womb bearers, we are upholding a responsibility to creation. Our wombs create all of this reality, are connected to all of this reality, everything, including the patriarchal matrix. This is also where, if you haven't gone through my course, Illumined Womb, highly recommend it. It's like your starting place. I also have a one-on-one, which is a womb reflection session for women, and we map somatically and shamanically with your body and your womb, your process. And I also bring in like customized energetic architecture work for your womb that's going to be supportive too. So hold on 1 minute. I thought I wasn't recording. Just give me a pause. The thing is that most women don't actually know what their womb is or does. And because they also have patriarchal imprinting and conditioning to include inside of their bodies, embody their physical body, they don't understand how to hold their womb appropriately. And so oftentimes a woman's womb is actually just open. I teach it and I speak to it as the tap. Like you have control over your tap. You can open it and you can close it. And there's a lot of teachings going around just telling women, oh, you just need to be open. And it's like, oh my God. Okay, you know who loves that? Is perpetrators. They fucking love that shit. You are responsible for the opening and the closure. Because what you are holding is something very dear and sacred. And so most women are open and they have the imprinting of the patriarchal matrix. And so there is a constant feasting from her womb to re-imprint and create the patriarchal matrix. So I pull women to a much higher standard to be new paradigm creators. And if you're going to do that, you're going to need to understand the actual mechanics of your womb. And we have to remove those distortions so you begin to even access your own power, because you won't even know that it's there. And you also won't know how you can engage with it responsibly. So even if you have this knowledge and wisdom, as I do, again, there can be ways in which manipulation and deceit is brought to you as an attempt to open you, knowing that what it is that you hold is a high concentration. So it's like finding a fucking treasure chest, right? That's what it is. So there are men that are so disconnected from themselves, their bodies, they're fractured, they're more mental body, and they get really brilliant. Like they get genius level in the mental body because there's such an immense imbalance between their bodies that they become skilled in the mental body, which turns into things like this level of manipulation. And they will intentionally create an environment. Okay, so this is super important. I'm bringing through a lot of teachings right now in the integrative evolutionary about the recentering of the feminine essence and also placing responsibility where responsibility is due. The masculine is responsible for the external environment, and the feminine is her domain is the internal. I'm not saying we don't move in and out of them. We want to move in and out of them because that is integration. But base code, the feminine is unseen, right? Is that not more internal? And the masculine is seen. Is that not more external? Yes. So what happens is that these men will create, this is very, very important, receive the coding of this transmission. They will create fields of distortion to surround her. Okay. He's creating a container, an environment. So if you are in a petri dish, your body, everything that comes into creation is directly in relationship to the environment that you are within. So in this dynamic with this man, I was having genuine healing experiences. A lot of them. A lot of them. I wouldn't have been there otherwise. And then what I realized after this wild, dishonoring infraction, where he created this environment, happened over time, to then have a day where there was an opening. Like there was just an opening on my part. And there were conversations that we had around honoring my opening and his responsibility to honor my opening. And there was fear. There was fear from me that that would not happen because there was a pattern of him not honoring my opening. But there were also conversations and seeming to be points of progression and growth. Now, this doesn't mean that I'm also not responsible for honoring my opening. I am, and I did. I held boundaries. I let my body's wisdom speak to me. I didn't allow, like that opening was like, if you have my tap and my tap is like a fucking tsunami, it was like a dripping sink. But in the moment, it was a big opening comparatively. And so there was a part of him that no doubt could tell in our interaction that I was only opening to a degree because my intuition, my feminine feeling body, and my physical body, I was listening to her wisdom. And so he couldn't gain access but to a point. And this would have always been the case. His deception would never have actually outweighed my purity and truth. You can only hold deception to a point. Embodiment is true. And I pay attention to embodiment. And I pay attention to my body's wisdom because I am one who actually steps into embodied work, embodied consciousness, right? It's not just like ideas. So there was an event that happened, and I'm not going to go on details about the actual experience itself, but there's an event that happened where there was like a kind of opening, but then there was also a non-opening on my part of like, I won't cross that line. And this isn't, I'm not speaking about this in a sexual way, though you can apply sexuality to this topic in conversation. Undoubtedly so, it applies. But sexuality is not the only space where a woman opens for a man to penetrate into her, to meet her deeper. This man intentionally used depth as a hook. This is a very important part of this conversation. Surface level men, they can't get access to me. So this man was using depth, and I now realize that he does this with other women as well. He is a perpetrator because predation is a repeated action of a violation. And so he is arriving to women from a place of seeming transparency and authenticity and holding space for her and her own vulnerability and her own healing processes to be a participant and a witness and a seemingly safe space. And because he had this kind of level of depth, he could see me. And I hold a lot of value to being seen because I'm vastly unseen. I'm so expansive. Like to see me, you have to also have expansion and depth. So he could see me and saw me literally in places that no one else has and could reflect this back to me. Again, I'm having a lot of healing processes. Now let's talk about the danger when depth is used to deceive and manipulate for a woman's opening. After this infraction happened, I was in a traumatic state. Genuinely, I've been healing from one of the deepest traumas of my life, which is why this newsletter is a little delayed. And in that, my body went catatonic. We've got to look at this and how direct it is. Because what he did was weaponize my opening against me to imprint his own shutdown, his own fear of connection and vulnerability and love. To be like, your opening isn't safe. Why would this patriarchal matrix want a woman like me to feel unsafe to open? Hmm. And so my physical body, there was the opening, and then there was while I'm in a catatonic state, a freeze state that my body naturally started going into, because it's saying, Ashtyn, this is what's happening right now. This is what is true. This is what is real. This is equal to what is occurring. He put his predation in those imprints. He projected them onto me to imprint them into my body, where he could not gain access to my actual natural and full opening. He created a shutdown experience where I couldn't keep myself safe and protected in the same way, so that he could violate me. You may be hearing this on different levels. I'm just not saying the words. But yes, that is what has happened here. This is a energetic and soul level violation. I'm using violation instead of another word. And so every single place, every single one, and there were a lot of places in my body where I had had healing experiences, where he was a participant, where he was involved, where he's like encouraging me to go deeper and like into deeper layers. And there's spaces that are opening up, right, for healing. Literally every single place where that occurred, he took that imprinting and he put it into every single spot in my bodies, in my physical body, in my emotional body, in my mental body, in my energetic, in my ethereal body, in my soul body. I could literally feel it. Extremely traumatic. So this is equal to the level of deception and violation and harm when someone uses depth as a hook, especially relative to the feminine essence. Now, the purity piece, to come back to that, my purity was like, I do not feel safe. I do not feel safe. Because again, part of why I'm brought to these kind of experiences, because I'm the medicine, because I'm the antidote, because I can see the extremity of what he had done. He could not take back. My purity does this a lot. It's so highly concentrated that even in people that can you typically hold it together, it will, their shadow material will come out as in an equal concentration to my level of purity. Not equal, my purity is always more powerful, but I'm saying it's like how it happens. And so then I will see it all. I'll see it all the way down to the root. People are shocked by the things that they have done to me, because this is how this dynamic has kind of related with the concentration that I uphold. And I just am it, of purity. And this means that then I experience it to extreme, but I also see it to extreme. And so I didn't feel safe. Y'all, I think I was on day 7, maybe, which was the first day I was able to keep my blinds open all day. That's how unsafe I felt. I felt unsafe just existing. My body was so traumatized that my body felt unsafe. I could barely shower. That is not normal for me at all. At all. So this is where we start to get into the healing. Okay. Into the healing. We are taught that after we have major trauma, let's use birth as an example, that you're supposed to just get up and go. You're good. You pretend like that didn't even happen. Do you know what does happen when we do that? When we bypass it, when we don't sit with it, when we don't let our body shiver and shake and go into its shutdown states and just love on ourselves inside of it. When we don't validate the actuality of what has taken place, our body remembers it. You will take that with you into the future, and you will create into and manifest into your future, because your body is a point of manifestation into the material world. What we really need to do is slow down, which is a part of the feminine. The feminine wisdom knows, oh no, my body is its wisdom, and what it knows and what I'm actually experiencing here is what I need to validate, and it's the place by which I need to move from. I could barely move. My energy was crazy low, crazy low. I tried to go to the grocery store 2 days, cried, couldn't get into the grocery store. I did not feel safe. I had to validate, like, this is what I'm in. This is the extremity of what just happened. I can't gaslight myself I can't gaslight my body. Going into and being in the catatonic state, my mind was like, just get up, just go, just walk. And my body's like, no, you can't gaslight your body. It will hold the memory. I couldn't go any faster than my body allowed. That was just what it was. A patriarchal matrix will try to get you into grinding away instead of actually healing, instead of recovering, instead of even acknowledging what took place. And this is where we begin to desensitize to the place of normalizing ongoing, everyday, collective, societal, familial, relational, etc., traumas. And this is not okay. That is not the way of the future. You can sit here and look at me like I'm weak because I took the time that my body has needed, and I still am. It goes up and down each day, and I'm paying attention and I'm showing up where I can. And whatever my body says, this is where we're at today. Because that is truer, that is pure, that is cleaner, that is far more honoring, that is far more validating. I will not gaslight myself. I will not tell my body something differently than what is experiencing. And this is also a part of my own reclamation of my space. Every place that he put that imprinting into my body, I didn't just get up and go, okay, I'm going to go out in the world. I'm just going to like create. What would I have been creating from? The fucking trauma. No, I'm far too pure and in integrity and clean to do it that way. Instead, I laid there in the healing process I needed. And as my body began to feel safer, I'm like, you get space to exist. You take up all the room you need. Like, even like, you take up all the room you need, bitch. I was feeling like I was going to have to move. That's how unsafe I felt. And instead, as I'm going through the healing process, by the way, thank you to the incredible healers that I know that showed up for me in this process. You know who you are. I am so deeply grateful for you. And if you're a woman who is going through this, know that I am a safe space and sanctuary for you in that process. And it is a process. So as I was, in this space, I'm validating where I'm at. If you don't validate where you're at, you will not be able to ask for your needs to be met. I have a really incredible friend that was like, anything you need, you let me know. And I was like, can you take me, like, go with me to the grocery store? Because I haven't been able to go to the grocery store by myself because I feel so unsafe. And he's like, yes, absolutely. No, I'm not going. I don't want to look weak. No, this is not weakness. I am strength. My sensitivity certainly is also strength. That is what I needed. And because I asked for what I needed, I received even more than I asked for. He supported me in healing and providing energetic and otherwise support in the space. He listened to my story. He cried with me. He saw me. He even had met this person, was like, what the fuck? Yeah. He went to the grocery store with me, stood by me the entire time. I have other people that are shamanic healers that did voice memoing with me and were like, no, this is exactly what you're going through. I'm like, I know, right? Like they could validate the actual level that I'm even speaking to here without fully speaking in word, only because this is going on YouTube, of what happens. I have other people who did incredible. Oh my God, they offered so much between support and listening to my story to energetic work and like, really skilled energy workers that also are pure, that I know because I don't just work with anyone, right? It's like, oh no, I can get support here. As I could not take care of myself, as I could not hold my field, I couldn't hold my field. Do you know what was also happening to me because I couldn't hold my field because there was so much shutdown and I energetically, I didn't have the actual strength to do it. I was getting attacked every single fucking day, mostly by men. Every day in my messenger, in the comments, every day. So there's that side of it. And then there's the side where there's like the people that'll meet you and they'll see you and they'll hold you and they'll support you and they'll protect you and they can be your strength when you're extra vulnerable. I am, again, one of those people that you come to when you're moving through something to that degree. I am here for you and I will be able to see you. Part of why I can see you is because I have navigated so many layers of this kind of shit that I can actually see what you are genuinely going through, where other people will gaslight you and they'll invalidate you and they'll be like, get to work. Why aren't you being creative? I will hold you. I will love on you. And I will heal alongside you. And then we will come into a place of reclamation of your space because that's a part of this. My purity was like, oh my God, I have no space to exist in this world. Where the fuck am I? Where do I get to exist in this world? And now I have reclaimed, I'm still in reclamation, but I've reclaimed. I'm like, if anyone's moving, it's him. These are my lands. I take precedence. The first day that I went out into public, my word was leave. Because I was like, if I see him, that is all I will say to him. Leave. You're in the group, leave. That's it. Because malevolence and distortion is being removed from this earth plane. It's not being seated. Purity is being seated. If Gaia is going to choose who gets to be here, it's going to be me, not you. So your purity too gets to take up space. It gets to exist. In fact, it is a needed and necessary healing ingredient to this earth plane. So let's not make it wrong or bad because other people choose to interact with it or misuse it in a way that is not congruent. That is their own incongruency. That's not a reflection on you. And they will have to hold that incongruency. And it's going to get heavier and heavier and heavier until it completely demolishes and collapses them. That just is. That is the era that we are in. And so that is part of what this was for me. I had a fear that I had given this person, even basically offered them more skills to manipulate the feminine through access to me and my teachings. Because he was going out into the world and then telling me stories about how he's being such an honorable man in this world, how he was sticking up for the feminine, and like it was all coming from me, like I was the inspiration. And I'm like, fuck, oh my God, he can use that to manipulate more women. And one of the healers that I spoke to had said to me, no, because you're the thing that collapses it. That extremity that I was talking about between the shadow and purity and how these things kind of arrive, you can't hide from it anymore. Just like how I can't not see you anymore. You can't hold depth the same way because you can't deceive yourself into believing that you are being a good, caring, safe man for the feminine anymore, because that's not what you're doing. So you're being upheld to a higher standard that only truth and purity know. So in the healing process, there is a reclamation that will take place. And in my body, all of those points, I'm like, actually, because you tried to utilize, including like pain points that existed before you, now you're responsible for all of that too. Because you don't get to imprint it deeper into me. I made certain contractual energetic agreements, which was like, this is a healing process. This is going to take me to my next space, and it will, because I commanded it, just like I command my space. So you do too. Let this be even more motivation that grounds you and grounds your pure essence and grounds the feminine and says to the feminine, no more suppression. She gets to exist. She gets to exist. And in the healing process, listen to your body. Your body has so much wisdom. And when you are willing to be with it in these deep healing experiences, and even allowing it to humble you in the ways that the body will humble you, you will also be deepening your connection to your body, which is a part of the grounding practices, which is a part of the reclamation of your space. And you will become even more attuned through your body's wisdom. Where, for example, in this opening process, your body, you will be more willing to pay attention to where your body is rather than suppress it and then repress it and then bypass it. So it's actually a safety factor more than a danger. Do you see it? High alchemy. I hope that this teaching transmission has been supportive to you. I know that this could be supportive to so many women. So many women. So if you know a woman that this transmission would meet her with exacting healing medicine that is needed, even from like a past moment that she has had, maybe something she's moving through currently, maybe it's just to support her preemptively and strengthening her discernment around these kind of dynamics, letting her see these types of pattern so the deception of man does not get to impact her in the same way. Please, please, please send, share. Also speak praises over my name, recommend my work, step into my membership group, move through Illumed Womb if you have not moved through Illumed Womb. Contact me about my high caliber woman pathway. It's behind the scenes. I do have a waiting list for it, but it is actually currently active. It's behind the scenes in my work. And also, as always, feel free to let me know how this has landed for you, how it has impacted you, how it has transformed your life, because I love, love, love hearing all of that feedback from you. As always, so much love to each and every one of you.